Well, the race debate has reignited in the U.S. following the death of Tyre Nichols, a 29-year-old man in Memphis who was beaten by 5 black Memphis police officers to death brutally, horrifically, during a traffic stop. There's been shocking body cam vision of the incident, which has been released, and it shows Nichols being attacked, and he later died in hospital. Horrible stuff. But the narrative of this is weird because it's been shifted, and even though everybody involved in this incident has been of the same race, well, the left media has tried to make it all about black versus white. Now, to discuss this very sad state of affairs, I'm joined by the founder of Wrong Speak Publishing and one of the great friends of this show, Adam B. Coleman. Adam, thank you so much for joining me. Let's kick off here by just looking at this headline from CNN. It says, it was an opinion piece written by Van Jones, and it said, the police who killed Tyre Nichols were black, but they might still have been driven by racism. Adam, explain this to me, because I'm not getting it.
So all of this comes back down to the ideological perspective that they're trying to push. The reason it comes back to racism is because white supremacy. And so white supremacy is seen as a systemic thing, and police officers are obviously part of a white supremacist system. So no matter the actions of 5 individual people who happen to be black, it all comes down to some sort of connection to the white supremacist system that they work for. All of this is highly ideological. It makes white supremacy and whiteness, as they might put it, as original sin. It's just another religious way of putting it out there, and it uses race as a weapon for the American public to argue over. But in reality, these are 5 individuals. It doesn't really matter what their skin color is. Sin has no particular skin color. It doesn't really matter the evil actions of these people and what they look like. All that matters is that their actions took place. And so they should be treated accordingly. And I personally just hate that every police encounter has to somehow turn into a racial issue, regardless if anything was said or if they look alike or if they don't look alike. Everything between the police encounters and civilians always turns into a racial issue.
Well, indeed, and I mean, we've seen this in recent months and years with all sorts of incidents, crimes, police stops, all sorts of things involving people of all sorts of races, where it all comes down to this weird white supremacy idea, even if nobody involved was white. But the thing that I'm concerned about, though, is that really, aren't the left here being, well, frankly, really racist because they're denying agency to people of color and saying, well, even whatever you are or you think you are, you're still driven by this internalized racism that's been forced into you by whiteness, and you have no choice in the matter.
Yeah, I mean, this is the actions of the progressive left. They're the ones who lowered the standards for that police department, so they had more diversity, the superficial diversity, not having it being related to merit as much as previously. And so this is part of the consequences that we have, where you let people through simply because of what they look like, rather than what's their mental state, what is their background. All of these things are really important when you're talking about police matters and people who have authority over individuals in a particular community. So I think the whole DEI framework that's being implemented throughout our country by progressives and for all the corporations and government who are basically caving into this because they're scared of appearing as racist, they're not helping our country either.
Indeed. And I mean, this is the thing that I thought was absolutely insane. Al Sharpton, he spoke at Nichols' funeral. Now, Al Sharpton is one of the most racially divisive figures in America. I grew up in New York City when he was running around in a tracksuit with a medallion, and he drove basically a pogrom against Hasidic Jews in Crown Heights. Have a listen to what he said at this funeral.
I can't speak for everybody in Memphis. I can't speak for everybody gathering. But for me, I believe that that man had been white, you wouldn't have beat him like that night.
How helpful is that?
I guess Al Sharpton's never heard of Tony Tempa. He's never heard of these figures because the media doesn't announce them. Statistically speaking, there are more white Americans who have police encounters because there's more white Americans. And so this idea that white Americans don't ever get brutalized, don't ever have some sort of negative encounter with the police is a farce. Now, if we want to talk about police brutality, talk about police brutality. To me, it doesn't matter if they're white, black, Hispanic, or whatever. It shouldn't be happening. But the problem is that Al Sharpton is essentially an ambulance chaser. He's always been that. And he's going to find some way to make this a racial matter, even when everybody looks exactly the same. So it doesn't surprise me.